So you're planning to move out, maybe out of your parents or out of your dorm, or maybe you're looking to move into a new apartment and you have a lot of questions. Welcome, because this video is for you. Now, whether you're 18 still living with your parents or 32 with a job and some savings, I got you. In this video, I talk about the most important things you need to keep in mind before you move out. My name is Chizzy, and in the past 2 years, I've moved out 3 times. Now, unintentionally, but over the course of me moving out, I've gained a little bit of experience, and I know moving out could be stressful, so I'm here to help. Alright, so first off, if you're moving out of your parents' house, first thing you gotta keep in mind is that once you step out that house, it's on. Now what I'm trying to say is like once you move out of your parents' house, say God forbid something bad happens and you have to go back, it's really tough mentally to have to actually go back. Maybe you lose your job and you can't continue to afford to pay rent. You might have to go back to your parents. And also this time that you have right now before you move out, man, just try to cherish it because you're definitely gonna miss your family. Because look at it this way, once you move out, it's almost like you're probably never gonna leave with your parents again. It's a thing I've come to realize, you move out and then it's from there onwards you just keep maybe you move into a new place or you do this or you move to a new city, you probably wouldn't go live with your parents again. I mean, you're gonna go visit and stuff, but you won't live there again, you know what I'm saying? So this time you have right now before you move out, man, just cherish it. Alright, so before you move out, I got some key factors I want you to keep in mind. You might want to put up a pen and paper just to jot some things down so you remember. So the first thing has got to be rent, man. You got to ask yourself, can you actually afford to move out? Can you afford to live alone? Can you afford to pay rent? Can you afford to get groceries by yourself? Can you afford to pay for transit? If you drive, can you afford to pay for parking? All that stuff, there's going to be extra expenses. It's not just paying rent, man. Living by yourself, you got extra bills on top of that. Now, if you live in a place where you get extra utilities, you got to pay for hydro and all that stuff, can you afford it? Now, make sure you're at a place financially where you feel comfortable that, hey, I can actually pay this by myself. So if you don't got your money right, man, try it and get that sorted out first. Now, the second factor you gotta keep in mind is, do you have the mental capacity to actually live alone? Because it's tough, I'm telling you. I mean, it's not tough, to be honest, but it could be tough, if you know what I mean. Because you're literally by yourself most of the time, and if you lack discipline, you might just fall on the wrong path. Now, living alone could feel lonely. If you don't like to be by yourself, you could feel lonely. For me, I love solitude. I like to spend time with myself, so I don't have any problem with that. If that's you, then for sure. If maybe you don't see yourself being comfortable being by yourself, you could consider getting a roommate. Now, getting a roommate is a whole other discussion, right? But if you have a roommate, that is also an added advantage because you guys get to split the cost of a lot of stuff. You split the rent, you split a ton of stuff, and it could eventually turn out to someone who you guys grow a relationship and become really close friends. That could be another option, getting a roommate. Obviously, you want to do that strategically, not just get a random person to become your roommate. Ideally, choosing someone who's a friend, someone who you already know as a friend and who's also looking to move out. That's probably the best option. But if maybe you can't find someone to move out with, something I recommend you do, I've actually seen a lot of people do it. They go on this website called roomies.ca. There's a bunch of other people who are looking to move out. You can kind of search, narrow it down to whatever city you are, and you could see someone who is also trying to move. But I would recommend before you actually move with someone, you meet up with them and discuss, hey, these are my boundaries, these are things that I'm kind of comfortable with, and then you have your budget discussed with them. Now, like I said, having a roommate is gonna save you a lot of money because ideally, if you get, say maybe you get a 2-bedroom, when you split the cost of a 2-bedroom, that's usually cheaper than just paying for a 1-bedroom by yourself. Now, I know most people like to say before you move out, make sure you have 6 months of rent saved up. I don't know if I'm 100% agree with that because I never had 6 months rent. I just kind of went with it. What I'll say is just make sure you have a stable income, a job that's good, and you're making more than you're paying for rent, for sure. Usually just saving up for maybe the first 2 months and then have the deposit. Usually a deposit will be half the rent. But then if you don't have an ideal credit score, then maybe you might want to save up 6 months rent so you can just kind of show, hey, I have the money, my credit score is just not good, but I have the money. Or you could also use a guarantor. Maybe one of your parents or a friend of yours could be a guarantor. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind if you have a credit score that's just not so good. Alright, so having those things in mind, now it's time to actually go apartment hunting. Now, before you go apartment hunting, First thing you gotta do is have a cap of how much you would ideally like to pay for rent. So say maybe you're comfortable paying 1 grand for rent, right? Like 1 grand, that's the absolute cap you can pay. Like you cannot pay more than 1 grand. So before you go apartment hunting, you gotta be looking for apartments that are under 1 grand. Maybe like $800 or like 900 or 700, depending on where you live. That's probably not ideal, but you can maybe find something with that price. But I'm just for illustration purposes, let's just go with 1 grand. 1 grand, when you go apartment hunting, you make sure you're looking for apartments that are under 1 grand. Now let me tell you what, there's usually extra fees on top of rent. So maybe you have to pay Wi-Fi. So you have to pay extra for Wi-Fi, maybe electricity bill or water and all that stuff. Having a cap and just staying by that cap when you're searching for apartment would really keep you under your budget. Now, looking for new buildings, like new buildings that are probably still under construction, is probably one of the best things you can do, because now they're looking for tenants, right? And they always give out deals. Like that's how I got this place. I'm gonna put the link to my apartment story here. You guys can watch that. But that's how I got this place. I literally applied here like a year ago before it even opened up, but while it was still under construction. And I got a deal. Just kind of reach out to like new buildings that are still under construction, email them or something, and just like, hey, be like, hey, like what options do you guys have for me? You know what I'm saying? Like this is my budget and I'm looking to move in like whenever you guys are open. Most of the times you're probably gonna get a deal from them. Also, when you go apartment hunting, you gotta keep in mind that you need to know what you want. Do you want extra amenities? Like, do you want a gym? Do you want the apartment to have a rooftop? Do you I don't know what a rooftop, but do you want the apartment to have water included? Do you want electricity to be included? Do you have a pet? You gotta make sure the apartment is pet friendly. And how much is the pet deposit? All that stuff, you know, you just gotta make sure you know what you want and put that up front there so you don't waste your time just looking at apartments that's not gonna fit your needs. Something else to keep in mind is how close is your apartment to your work, to your school. If you bus, like how close is the bus station or the train station? If you drive, what's parking like? How much is parking? All that stuff. Also, probably one of the most important ones here is like, what's the neighborhood like? Is it safe? You gotta make sure it's safe during the day and at night. You don't wanna leave it in a sketchy area, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you go apartment hunting during the day, you probably wanna go by the area at night and see, just get a feel of what it's like. Also, make sure to always read reviews. Like every apartment, they probably have a page or Google page. Go check the reviews on Google. Check the bad reviews and check the good ones too. But make sure you check the bad reviews so you kind of see what could be a possible issue that you might have. And when you go apartment hunting, always make sure to ask them, hey, so how often is the rent increased? And if so, by how much? Like you want to know, so you don't want them to just increase the rent on you while you're still there. But usually like when you sign a lease, the rent is fixed for the lease term, but just make sure they're not going to increase the rent on you like just out of nowhere. Alright, so let's say you found an apartment that you like. Now it's time to apply. Now you gotta make sure once you see that apartment that you really like, you gotta apply ASAP. Because most times, bro, it's first come, first serve. If someone else pays the deposit, it's gonna be reserved for them. So make sure you do it as soon as possible. Usually the deposit, they require a deposit that's like half the rent or whatever they tell you the deposit is. And maybe a pet deposit. And if you maybe need a guarantor, maybe you can use your parents or someone that you know, like a close friend, to be a guarantor for you, a friend of yours that has a good leasing history. At this point, it's just a waiting game. If you really like that apartment, you might just have to wait. If you want to keep looking for other apartments, that's totally up to you. But if you really like an apartment, you just gotta wait for it, man. Alright, so at this point, you've gotten approved. Congratulations, I'm excited for you. Now, things you gotta keep in mind. Before you move in, make sure you do a pre-moving assessment. Now, this is very important because when you move out, you're gonna take me for sure. Do a pre-moving assessment so they actually see the state of the apartment before you move in, so they know like if there are any damages or stuff like that. Trust me, you're gonna thank me when you move out. Also, do you have furniture? Do you have furniture? Maybe you have a little bit of stuff that you're gonna be moving out with, but do you have furniture? Because you're not just gonna be sleeping on the floor. So usually the best place you wanna look for furniture to get great deals is Facebook Marketplace. Check out Facebook Marketplace, you're gonna see great deals. Usually like people selling stuff that they've used for like cheaper. If you're a baller and you wanna get new furniture, definitely go for it. Now, probably one of the most important things as you move out, as you plan to move out, is to pack your stuff. The best way to be efficient and not lose your mind while you're moving is to pack and organize your stuff. I can't stress how important this part is. You need to go to Home Depot, get some boxes, pack, label, and organize your stuff as you move. This is gonna save you a lot of stress by the time you like you're at the new place and you're trying to unpack. Say you've packed your stuff, it's all set up and everything. Now it's time to actually get a U-Haul. Now, if you're a baller and you want to get a moving company, why not? That's gonna save you a ton of stress, but it's gonna cost you a bag. Now, depending on how much stuff you have, you might need to get a U-Haul. It's so easy to book and it's cheap too. You might want to tell your family and friends ahead of time to like help you the day off, like your moving day. So like just give them heads up, hey, I'm gonna be moving out this day and you guys help me with the U-Haul and stuff and packing, because you don't want to do it yourself. It might be stressful. Now it's time for you to actually move in. Great, I'm excited for you. Take your time, take it easy. That day is probably still gonna be stressful, but just take it all in, man. Just be grateful that you've gotten to this point. Now you've actually moved in. Now this is the biggest question you gotta ask yourself. Can you actually cook? Because you're not just gonna be eating out all day. You're just gonna go broke, you know what I'm saying? But it doesn't really matter if you're living by yourself or with a roommate, man, you still gotta cook, right? So keep in mind, you need to budget for food. Just make sure you have all that like set up. Just take your time with learning, get some recipes. Actually, what I used when I first started living by myself, I used to use HelloFresh a lot and Chef's Plate. This video is not sponsored, but I used them a lot in the beginning. They got me some recipes and all that stuff. I like to say right now I'm a little chef because I have a ton of recipes I could do by myself. But in the beginning, I had no idea. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know nothing. So it was really tough for me in the beginning, but it's just a learning process. You will eventually get to that stage too. So just take your time, look at recipes online and just, you know, experiment. That's literally the best that you could do. Now, say you're at a point in your life right now where you can't actually afford to move, but you really want to. Man, all I'm gonna say is just pray and then just keep saving and just pray and just put that prayer request to God, because it's real. It's gonna help you. Man, I'm a whole testimony to that right now. Like my apartment right now is a testimony. The fact that I live here, man, crazy. So just put that to God and just, you know, pray about it. And one day you will get there for sure. Now with all that I've talked about in mind, you can actually start to plan on when you can actually move out. It's gonna be a gradual process. There's no need to rush. You will get there as long as steps are being taken to actually get there. You will get there. Good luck, and please don't forget to come back here to comment where you've actually finally moved out. I'm excited for you. I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.